How do you like my makeup?
I love it.
For a date night look?
Definitely fuck with it.
We're starting off with the brows. I'm using the Kiss Professional's Fine Precision Brow Pencil in the shade Deep Dark Brown. I'm just filling them in and shaping them how I normally do. I'm not going to go super into detail on this brow, but if you want a full breakdown on how I achieve my laminated brow look, I'll be sure to link it here for you, so be sure to go check that out. Once the brows are filled in, we're going to clean them up and start setting the base for our eyeshadow. So I like to go in with my Thomas Beauty foundation in the shade Ebony Elegance, and I'm going to mix that with the Sephora Best Skin Ever concealer. I like mixing these two because it slightly brightens the foundation and gives me the exact color I need to make sure I have that nice highlight in my brow bone, as well as setting the base for my eyeshadow and making sure that eyeshadow pops against the base. After that, I go back into my foundation by itself and I clean up the top of my brow so everything looks neat and polished. Now we're going to grab an eyeshadow palette that's full of neutrals frame. I'm using an OG. This is the Morphe 39A Artistry palette. The first shade I'm going to use is our transition shade, so make sure it's not too dark. This shade is going to set the tone for the entire look. I'm using the Morphe M33 eye blender brush, and with a very light hand, I'm applying this shade just above my crease. I'm using small swirling motions, starting from the inner corner of my eye slightly into the front of my brow, and then I'm going to work my way to the outer portions of my brow near the tail end, and I'm going to intentionally avoid the arch of my brow bone because I want that highlight to stay there. I did go in twice with this shade just to build up a soft wearable intensity, and then whatever was left on the brush, I fanned it out diagonally to give my eye a lifted shape. Next, for our crease shade, especially if you have hooded lids like I do, you want to grab a deeper chocolate brown, look straight ahead into your mirror, and apply that shade directly on top of your crease. Doing it this way applies the color both in and slightly above the crease, which makes controlling the intensity of the look so much easier. I'm using the M383 eye detail brush to apply this shade. Once that's down, I go back into the M33 eye blender brush. With what was left on it, I use that to soften out the harsh edges for this crease shade. Now for our eyelid shade. We're going back into that Sephora concealer. I'm applying 2 small dots into the lid and then looking up. This shows you exactly where your crease is, and you don't want to go above that point. Instead of cutting above the crease, we're using our natural crease as a guide. Once we have the shape that we want, we're going to take a clean brush or a small setting brush like mine and smooth out the base. It's okay if a little bit of concealer gets onto the first few shades that we use because we'll clean that up. Next, I'm going to go back into the M333 brush that we used earlier for the crease without putting any new product on it and lightly reinforcing that crease. This helps soften the cut crease edges even more and makes everything blend seamlessly. After that, we're going to go back into that eyeshadow palette and set the eyelid base with a shade that's similar to how the concealer already looks. If you like the lid shade as is, you can actually just set it with a bit of setting powder or a similar eyeshadow color. Now, to really give this look, that siren effect, I'm stamping on a cool tone brown eyeshadow shade, and I'm going to use the M363 eyeliner brush. This just adds depth without making the eye look too dark. And for extra definition, I'm actually going to go into a gel liner. I'm using the ColourPop gel liner, and I'm going to apply it both to the top and bottom lash line. Then we're going to apply our mascara and throw on our lashes. Now, let's get into this base routine. I'm an oily skin girl, so I'm starting with a matte primer. I work this into the skin and let it get tacky. And when I say tacky, I mean if your primer bottle is sticking to your face like this, that's how you know it's activated and ready to grip your makeup. Staying with e.l.f., I'm going to go into the It Girl of blushes, and you probably already know what the shade is. It's Pinky Promise. I'm going to apply this at an angle on my face too, and we're going a little heavy-handed because it's Valentine's Day. It's a date night look, and we need him to think that he's making us blush the whole night, friend. So as we're blending it out, we're going to keep a light hand so it doesn't look harsh. And also, we're going to take it slightly under the eye to maximize coverage before we apply our concealer. Now that the blush is on, we're going into concealer. Your concealer should be about 1 to 2 shades lighter than your skin tone. We're not being heavy-handed here. We're being very intentional about where we're placing it. The goal is lifted and youthful. If you're like me and you want a little bit of extra brightness so he can't stop looking at your face all night for the right reasons, we're going to add 1 very small dot of brighter concealer on the inner corners of our eyes. Normally, this is where I would spray myself down with setting spray, but I ran out. You, on the other hand, you need to spray that setting spray. So go ahead and do that. I'll wait. Once it dries just a little, not completely, start gently blending out the outer corners of the eyes with a light hand. Always start with the outer edges first before working your way in. This gives the look maximum coverage. Once the deeper concealer is blended, go into the brighter concealer and focus that only on the inner corners of the eye. The goal here is bright, not flashback. Next, we're applying liquid bronzer. I'm actually going to go on with my Thomas Beauty foundation in the shade Rich Cocoa and apply it with a dense angled contour brush. Make sure you're placing it in the groove of your cheekbone and slightly above it. We want high cheekbones, not a 5 o'clock shout out. I also take it around the temples and forehead and bring it back into the cheekbones. Now for foundation. We're only applying foundation under the cheekbones, on the chin, and on the top lip. Basically everywhere you didn't already put the product. Congratulations, friend, you just makeup underpainted. For powder, I'm gonna go in with the Beauty Bakery setting powder in the shade Oat Translucent. I'm setting under the eyes, the blush, and bronzer only. After that, I go into my powder foundation, or you can use your finishing powder and apply it under the eyes. Then we're gonna go into our powder bronzer, set everywhere we put our liquid bronzer at. Then we're actually gonna go back into the powder foundation or your finishing powder and only apply it where we applied foundation. Then we're gonna grab our powder blush, set the blush, and once again, setting spray and press it into the skin the same exact way as before. Now for our lip. You can use your favorite lip combo, or you can steal mine, friend. I'm going in with the ColourPop So Juicy Lip Liner in the shade Jaguar to outline the lips. Then I'm gonna go into Mocha Latte to define the Cupid's bow in the center of the bottom lip for that pouty effect. Then I lightly tap the Juvia's Place Nubian Sand lipstick all over my lips and even slightly onto the lip liner. And then we pop the lips. Do not rub. We don't want one color look. We want ombre. We want juicy lip. To finish, I'm using the Lawless Beauty Forget the Filler Gloss in the shade Daisy Pink. We're going to apply a light layer. The look needs to be light, airy, and wearable. Also, a side note, I did add mascara to my bottom lashes because it gives very much, yes, swipe that Visa, spend some money on me energy. And that is it. This is our finished wearable Valentine's Day date night makeup look. Soft, pretty, effortless, and yes, hubby approved. Now, go drive that man crazy in the best way, or go steal the heart of the man who doesn't even know he's your man, but he's your man. And let me know how much they love the look. Thanks for watching, friend. Bye.